Tired of boring breakfasts? Cereal got you down? Toast? Just toast? Introducing egg in a bag. 2 ounces of ooey gooey yolky goodness, hen laid, pan fried, Ziploc sealed. It's egg in a bag. A staple of the all-American breakfast, egg in a bag brings sunny side up right to you. Protein-packed, lightly oiled, salted, peppered, all to go. Whether you like it crispy, runny, or somewhere in between, egg in a bag brings vitamins, nutrients, and pure joy to busy folks like you. Break free from the confines of the kitchen table and bring a classic culinary experience to work, school, the beach. This egg will go where no egg has ever gone before. Just crack open the Ziploc bag and enjoy, one yolk at a time. And the best part? There's no subscriptions, no hidden fees, no annoying ads. Just an egg and a bag. And so began my entrepreneurial breakthrough at the ripe age of 12. Before the bell rang, marking the start of first period, I would conduct focus groups with my fellow middle schoolers, survey their tastes, their desires, their preferences, and gauge their interest in what I was sure to become a culinary hit among my peers. Egg in a bag. You may be wondering. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. An egg, lightly fried, humbly seasoned, and cased in a portable, all-purpose baggie. Perfect for busy students yearning for the flavor and protein of a fried egg, but running to catch the school bus as the icy night thaws to dawn. No time for a sit-down meal. It was a product that practically sold itself. Even so, I gave it my best promotional efforts, and as a result, had dozens of 7th graders pledging to purchase on the impending launch day. Only when that day came, suddenly, everyone seemed to have lost their appetite. Maybe it was the packaging, the way the grease smeared across the plastic, or the way a bit of yolk would dribble out, pooling in the corners of the baggie. Maybe it was a design flaw. No utensils were provided, and the egg would slip and slide as you squeezed it toward your mouth. Whatever it was, when the day finally came, the hordes of eager customers were nowhere to be found. I was left standing alone, arms brimming with steaming baggies. And so I did what any reasonable person would do. I hid the evidence. Arriving early to English class, I knew I had to make my move, and fast. Hardcover school-issued copies of Romeo and Juliet lined the classroom walls. They piled up, stretching toward the styrofoam tiled ceiling, the perfect hiding place. I slipped the egg in a bags between the heavy books, flattening them between the hard covers. No one would ever know. At least not until the stench of my failures would come back to haunt me as the eggs putrefied over the next few days. Egg in a bag was only the first in a long line of my get-rich-quick schemes. Entrepreneurship wasn't easy. This I knew from my history in Girl Scouts. Trudging through snow up to my waist, I knocked on neighborhood doors, peddling a full range of Girl Scout cookies. More than a few times, I would peer through the window as a neighbor dove under the couch or switched off the TV, not wanting to buy any cookies, but not brave enough to reject a Girl Scout straight to her tiny face. This taught me not just about the trials and tribulations of business, but also about the true evil contained in the human soul. After this, I would turn to scientific research studies that paid pennies for drinking ungodly amounts of cranberry juice, then to iguana sitting. Yes, it's like dog sitting, but for iguanas. Then to bar mitzvah photography. The egg-in-a-bag scheme that started it all, however, did not exist in a vacuum, but rather emerged in the context of the 2008 financial crisis, which coincided with the collapse of the family business, and tragically, with the start of my braces and glasses era. So the success of this entrepreneurial endeavor seemed more vital than ever. Much of what I knew about the art of the scheme was learned from my father. A traveling salesman of sorts, his approach was characterized by a sense of optimism that bordered with complete disconnection with reality. It did make everything seem more possible, though. He would drag me along to participate in his retirement planning, which consisted of regularly purchasing lotto tickets at the liquor store down the street. The clerk would hand him the ticket and me a mystery-flavored dum-dum lollipop. My dad had a knack for getting things on the cheap. "If it's free, it's for me," was his favorite phrase. Never in my life have I seen someone obtain not just one, but 2 free boats. One afternoon, I came home to an old wooden pirate ship in the driveway, left to him by his 95-year-old friend, Hank, who he'd met on the forums, and who was close to death. Before my father, there was his father, a charismatic Bronx native who had risen from humble beginnings to achieve considerable success in business. Perhaps it was the very humbleness of these beginnings at his heels that kept him running. After retiring, he set upon the leisurely task of running 15 barbershops across the South Carolina and Georgia region. He seemed to be living proof of the American dream. Twice a year, we would make the 16-hour pilgrimage by car from the northeast down to the South Carolina low country where my grandparents lived. As we hurtled down the I-95, it seemed as if we were headed closer and closer to this elusive dream. Belched out by the highway, we were spat out into country roads that tangled and twisted in the glow of headlights, the smell of salt and magnolia burning in the air. At the end of the road, the luster of my grandparents' house seeped out of the windows and tumbled onto the marshland, beckoning like the beacon of a lighthouse. The front door, always unlocked, gave way to a house of curios. We were greeted by an alligator holding a tray of sweets, and a train of porcelain elephants snaked around the stairs. Jelly beans poured out from dispensers as we navigated the hallway, before being swallowed into a dining room encrusted by masquerade masks, peering out onto unsuspecting guests. These were the spoils of war. This house, with its white picket fence, the reward of a life sacrificed to the dream. It was on these promises that my father had wagered his own plans and designs, following in the family business of sales and raising his children in a blue house on a small hill. In all the confusion, it became a bit unclear who the dream really belonged to anyway. Was it his dream or my grandfather's? Or was it something much bigger than them both? Years later, stuffing eggs into Ziploc bags, I'd ask myself something similar. Perhaps our entrepreneurial adventures and misadventures, my dad's and my own, were played out for an audience of one, And what really prodded us forward was the hope of hearing our fathers clap. My father's adventures in business weren't quite as smooth sailing as my grandfather's, though. Amidst the financial crisis, we began to receive incessant messages that the family car would be repoed. Well, they can come and take it then, he said. And they did. When they came for the house, however, he put up more of a fight. With that same dogged, perhaps delusional optimism, he had persistently followed his own father's footsteps after that dream, chasing it toward where it was supposed to lead, home. And yet, the foundations of that home seemed shakier than ever. The battle for it stretched over years until I'd graduated from selling egg in a bags to contemplating selling a different kind of egg to finance my college studies. Coming home each school break was like a coin toss, unsure if it would be my last time in this blue house on the little hill. Whereas I'd once been swept up in the allure of the dream, I began to doubt its potential payoff. The stench of my putrefying faith began to reek like those rotting eggs so many years ago. It seems, however, in chasing this dream, this myth of progress, stability, success, satisfaction, we risk outrunning the point. Before those eggs belched out their sulfurous last gasps beneath piles of Romeo and Juliet, they had filled the kitchen with a warm aroma of Sunday morning. Close your eyes and hear it. Close your eyes and hear it. That electric sizzle of oil and frying pan, the shimmering crunch of the salt shaker, the love and care with which I tucked each egg into its little bag. Sliding each of those little guys off the spatula, I glimpsed for a moment what the masterminds of the pyramids must have felt. Visions of humanity coming together to scrape the sky. Because the final resting place of those eggs, whether they found themselves in the mouths of hungry customers or whether they found themselves smushed beneath forgotten textbooks, is not the core of what it means to craft an egg in a bag. No. To produce an egg in a bag is to partake in the miracle of creation, not just the chemical reaction that hardened the primordial goo of a raw yolk into a delectable treat, no. But the creation of a vision of a world unlike any we'd ever seen before. To hand someone an egg in a bag was not just a snack, but rather an invitation to another way of being. You see, a dream is one thing, and a scheme another. A dream, and this can be the dream, perhaps the American dream if we're on the subject, is a mirage dangling just off the cusp of the horizon. But a scheme is something you do. To scheme is to desire in a way that overflows the very constraints of reality itself, and to know that to get what you want, you'll have to go beyond human means. You might have to bend and twist the rules. You might have to rely firmly on a miracle. Your mission is the pursuit of the loophole. Daring the universe to conspire in the pursuit of a fantasy so enticing, it can't help but become reality. While my father's version of success might not have come in the same package as my grandfather's, and he has yet to win the lottery, he taught me that it's not about hitting the jackpot per se, but about that nightly walk to play the numbers. It's about the hours spent scouring the boat forums, It's about twisting and untwisting 5,000 screws from a pirate ship that's marooned itself in your driveway. Every moment spent scheming is an act of striving for just beyond what the eye can see. While I'm not really sure what happened to those abandoned egg in a bags in the end, I like to imagine someone eventually peeling them off a copy of Romeo and Juliet. In the same way we sift through archaeological ruins, filled with awe and wonder at the grand visions of their original builders. I like to imagine that they glimpsed for a moment what the world could be, what it would be if we threw down our forks and knives, broke free of the kitchen, and demanded the crispy, flavorful goodness of a fried egg whenever and wherever we wanted. I like to imagine that for one humble moment, they too were dazzled by the art of the scheme.
Put your hands together for VAMP First Timer.